Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Daggett and today we're going to be covering Japanese finger waves. So, this is a video that's been requested on my channel many times now. Lots of people have said that they're struggling with it, and it is a difficult one to draw. It's also a very difficult one to explain, but I am going to do my best in today's video to explain to you how to draw Japanese finger waves in the way that I draw them. And I'm going to show you a couple of little tricks and techniques you can use to improve your finger waves. But at the end of the day, it does come down to practice. It's a hard thing to explain because the technique is really simple. There's not much to it. You're drawing little curves, right, to create your waves. But actually putting them in a design and creating some flow is more difficult than it seems. But it does just take a little bit of practice and moving your hand in a fluid sort of motion to get those shapes. But I'm going to try really hard today to explain to you a simple way to draw some waves that look nice, and I might even shade them for you today as well. Okay guys, let's jump to the overhead. Okay guys, welcome back to the table, and in today's video we're going to be covering Japanese finger waves, and we're going to start out with Fabriano hot press watercolor paper and my mechanical pencil as usual. Okay, so jumping into this, we're going to draw in a circle for the top part of our wave. Coming off of this circle, I'm going to come down and do an S shape like this. And that's going to give us the direction and the flow of the wave. Coming up to the circle here, I'm going to draw just some lines coming out of the circle. Another variation you can do is draw circles coming off the circle. So I might even do that for you guys. And you can throw in a few lines as well. Just like this. And a few lines off the S curve like that as well. And then I might double up on that S curve as well. Just like that. So it's a pretty funky looking image so far, but trust me, it's going to turn into some beautiful Japanese finger waves. So from here, it's pretty straightforward. Your next step is actually to construct the wave. There's not too much to it, but getting these shapes in the right flow is pretty important. So when you're doing a design, lay down the shapes of where you want your waves to sit, and lay down the shape of the circles where the fingers will go, or the end of the wave crash will go, and that way you get a good idea of how the wave sits before you waste time drawing each individual finger of the wave, or each individual curl of the wave. So we're going to start off with the bottommost one here. And we're going to basically follow that little circle we did along the top edge, giving it a little bit more solid of a line. And from the bottom of that line we just drew, we can wrap around, and you're just going to taper it back. So you're going from small and widening as we come back on that curve. Just above this, we can put in a little fold, or like just a little curved line behind that. This is basically like, parts of the water are crashing out, and then parts of it are sort of folding over itself. Following the bigger circle above this, we can come out. At the end of your waves, there's two ways that I sort of typically do it. You can come straight back off it and just leave a point on the end of it. Or another way to do it is to draw like a little foot on the end of it. So like I was saying, you can either come straight back like this and just leave a point on the end of the wave, or sometimes to add some variation, I'll come back and do it like that. So you're just doing like a little curl at the end, a couple of bumps, and then following that line back around. And this will just give you some variation in the shape of your lines. Okay, from here, we can add in another little fold like this. If you want to, you can bring that fold in with a little S curve like that. This will give the wave a little bit more dimension when it's shaded. Following out our next curve or our next little circle like this, and back around. And then I've actually done a bigger line just behind this, so we can follow that out, do a little wave or a little finger, continue that for a bigger one like that, and that gives you like a nice big crash at the very top. Just behind this, we'll do another small fold. And so the shape you're creating is pretty straightforward. It's like drawing little C's, like the letter C, and then you're following that line back around and going from a small taper to like a larger, wider area. And then you can sometimes throw in these little curves that we put in there, and that gives you a little bit more dimension. It separates these waves, or this part of the wave, from the back part of the wave. That way they're not all sitting on one plane, and then the image looks really flat. So you can actually separate them a little bit like that. Now these circles at the back, we're going to follow them as well, but instead of following them in the same way, we're actually following like the outside edge of these, and this will give the wave a little bit of shape at the back. Now in terms of doing our S curve here, these two lines I've drawn in here, might add a third one there. I'm going to follow those out and build a couple of little wave ends or wave curls on them, just following those lines that we drew in. So we can do a little one here, have that turn into a bigger one, just in the way that we've layered them. And from here I might bring that curve down and loop it back around like this. Okay, that flows up into there, that goes into the bottom of this wave here. We can link those back together using some more curls, and that's sort of the way that you link these parts together, is just adding more curls, adding more folds in the water sort of thing. So you've got this separation here. There's obviously a few different ways you can close the gap or continue this onto the rest of the design. So part of the way we could do that is to bring this curve around and then continue it off into another design, or into another element of the design. So it's almost like we've got water that's just crashing up against something, and then you could put like a subject matter here or something like that. There's all sorts of different ways that you can build upon this, and that's what's fun about doing waves, is you can continue to build on them and sort of do whatever you'd like with them. So in this case, we've got the wave crashing here. Maybe I want another few small waves here, so I can just do a couple of little circles like this and follow the shape of them to give us another crash right on this side. And you certainly don't want all of your waves flowing in the same direction. So you don't want all of them crashing to the right side or the left side of the page. You sort of want to swap it up a little bit and, you know, give the piece a little bit more dynamic. So we'll bring that down, follow this circle as well to give us another little wave. And off the end of some of the waves, you can put some little, you know, little circles, which are just like little droplets of water that, you know, they occur when waves crash. You get all these little droplets of water as well. So that's a nice little touch you can add, which a lot of the time we don't add when we're drawing tattoos, designs, you know, in a way to keep the design really clean, but you can put those in. So in terms of lining this, I'm just going to be using a pigment liner. This one's a Staedtler. It's a bit different to usual, and it is a 1.2. I was using a 0.5 and a 0.8 for nearly all of my line work, but when you work on cold press watercolor paper, it tends to not give you as thick or clean of a line. So I went and got myself a Staedtler 1.2 pigment liner so that I can get those thicker lines without using a Sharpie and going, you know, thicker than I want it to go. So this is sort of a nice in-between, and this might give us a little bit of clarity for what we're doing here today. So I'm going to quickly go through and line these, and then I'm going to show you a simple way you can shade your finger waves so that they look really nice. Okay, so I've lined the waves here. We're going to go ahead and shade them. I'm going to be using, to start with, an Ecoline brush pen in black, and I may even use a cold grey. This is like a cold opaque grey from Ecoline. This is 717 is the brush pen number in case you're interested. I may use that one, but we're going to start off with our black and our watercolor brush as usual. Okay, so when we're thinking about waves and looking at waves, these big crashing areas are what we call whitewater, I guess. Like when you look at a wave crash and there's areas of the water that get foamy and bubbly, and when they actually crash upon things, they look almost white. I'm assuming this is because they're the way they reflect light and refract light and things like that. And just because when water gets mixed up, it becomes a little bit foggy and a little bit bubbly. So the parts of the waves that are actually crashing are primarily going to be left white or a really light tone of grey. You don't really want to oversaturate them with too much black, because those part of the waves is what you want to stand out. So all your background elements need to be a little bit darker. So in between and behind the waves here, we're going to do a little bit of black shading. It's very dependent on the design that you're doing. That's why I'm saying, like, it's really custom, like how you want to draw your waves. It's very dependent on what kind of design you're doing as to how you shade these as well. But generally speaking, as a general rule of thumb, I would stick to keeping the waves a lot lighter than the background or subject matter. That way they really stand out, and to me that makes the most sense, to have the actual crashing part of the wave a little bit lighter than everything else. So we'll throw a little bit of black in here as well. Okay, so in terms of these flowing lines, they're going to be pretty dark as well, because that is sort of like the flowing water outside of the crashing part of the water. So we're going to do those in black and fade them out to grey as well. So we're going to come along like this. I'm going to do some black, just like that, off the bottom line, and we're blending that upwards towards the line that's just above it. And you just want to make sure you leave enough light grey and white on each part of that, okay? So we've shaded in those two parts of the water there. Usually what I like to do if I'm doing stuff that has solid line work in it for waves, I like to include some parts that don't have solid line work. So I might just do a little bit of shading under here, like this. Come in with a bit of our black and just blend it out. And then I might do just a little bit that comes off here and just blend that. So that's not going to have any line work around it. It's going to be a little bit softer than the rest of it. But I think that plays really well. It juxtaposes well with the parts that do have line work. I think it sort of stands out and gives the water a real soft look. I'm going to try and go in now with a bit of that cool grey. I haven't really done this before. Normally I shade my waves all with the black, but I thought this would be an interesting little experiment. So I'm going to come into this little gap in here with our cool grey, and I'm just going to blend that out a little bit. This, I have found with the Ecoline pens that certain colours don't blend as well as others do, and I've certainly found that with this grey in the past. We're going to do a couple of shades that come off the bottom of the waves like this, but you do want to leave a little white edge along the edge of the wave there. That's like your skin break, or like a little reflected highlight sort of thing. We'll do the same thing off the back here. I might do a little bit up in the middle here where the wave sort of joins. And you can just blend that out to a white in any direction, basically. We're just wanting to soften that out, basically. So in this case, it doesn't matter too much what direction you're blending it. We're just softening and sort of spreading that grey out into a white, just to give the waves a little bit more tonality. So making sure you're leaving those little skin breaks or highlight gaps around the edges of the waves, the little white line that you're leaving, that's really important. Looking at some of my older artwork, that's like once you improve what you're doing, obviously your old work doesn't look as good to you anymore. But I could never figure out precisely what it was, and then more recently I figured out that I never used to add those little skin breaks in, or those little edge highlights like that. It was pretty rare that I'd leave those in, and it was more like wall-to-wall color on everything I did. And I realized that it sort of took away from that aesthetic that I'm after, which is the look of the illustration that can be tattooed, or that's right for tattooing. And so it took away from that particular aesthetic. And then the other thing that I didn't like about it was the wall-to-wall color it's a bit too oversaturated, and it doesn't let your eye sort of catch on things. I don't know if that makes sense. So basically, like when you've got all these sort of white areas and white lines in between what you're doing, it tends to draw your eye in a little bit, and it doesn't confuse you as much. Whereas when there's really like solid wall-to-wall color, it's a little bit more difficult to read what's going on, especially with a traditional color palette. You know, if you've got more colors available and you're doing something more realistic or something, then obviously wall-to-wall color is going to be fine. But if you're trying to work with a limited color palette, then you need those little gaps in between what you're doing. It gives it a really traditional look as well, which is sort of, you know, what I enjoy drawing and what I enjoy painting. That's just sort of where my passion lies. But everyone's art style is going to be a little bit different, and you know, what you want to do with your art is going to be different to probably what I do with my art, or what my art goals are. So yeah, everyone's just a little bit different. We're just going in and adding in a little bit more of this opaque grey to some of the parts of the crashing bits of the wave, and just adding in a few shadows and bits like that to give this thing a little bit more shape. Like I said, this grey really doesn't blend nicely like the black does, so yeah, it might take a little bit more work to blend it in there. And you might even want to just start by using you know, like graphite pencils or charcoals or something to shade your waves, and that, you know, just to give yourself a little bit of practice before jumping in with the inks, as they can, like I said, be a little bit difficult to work with. Bring in some grey like this. Okay, to talk about one other really neat thing you can do, which is not necessarily, I don't think it's necessarily a traditional Japanese style thing to do. I think they generally line, you know, all of their waves. But something you can do, which is, you know, a little bit of fun and, you know, maybe just something to experiment with, is doing some waves that are even further in the background, and we do them as like shadow waves. So the way to do that is to draw in a rough wave shape, just going straight in with your Ecoline marker, and before you touch that edge of your main waves, you're going to blend it out to a lighter grey. Okay, so we'll go like that and throw in a wave, and you can even use your brush marker, or your brush pen, sorry, to push the ink around and draw in some of these little waves just using the brush itself. And this will just bulk out your design a little bit more. It gives you a little bit more depth to work with, and yeah, it gives the design just another element of depth, which is always exciting and, you know, something we should sort of strive for. Also, using the brush to do this is great, because if you're doing these background sort of shadow waves, you automatically get these little wispy sort of fingers that come off of the crashing lines that you've drawn in because of the bristles of your brush. So you actually automatically get almost like a little special effect, which is really cool. That is it, guys. I really hope you enjoyed today's tutorial video, and I hope it helped you out a little bit. I know these are really difficult to sort of figure out a good flow and how to put them into your designs, but I do hope today's video has helped you with the shading and with the composition of your waves. I just want to give a shout out to Stockos. He's messaged me on Facebook with this illustration that he's done, following along with my peony tutorial. I'll leave a link in the description for that one if you're interested in learning how to draw this. He's done an amazing job, and again, it's just really cool to see people following my videos and actually drawing from my tutorials. So if you want to see one of your artworks featured on my channel, feel free to message me on Facebook or flick me an email at daggett.designs@gmail.com. Make sure you head over to Facebook at Daggett Designs to see my online portfolio and any upcoming work or projects I have going on. I post on there pretty regularly. If you want to support what I do, please head over to daggettdesigns.com.au and consider picking something up for yourself. I've got some wonderful waterproof high quality stickers on there. They're 4" by 4" stickers. I've also got a few different prints that are up for sale at the moment. They're not going to always be for sale. They'll probably come down and I'll rotate them out with other ones. So if you like any of the prints on there, make sure you grab one. And there's also the Daggett Designs Brush Pack 1. This brush pack includes over 25 hand-drawn images that I've drawn myself These are perfect for referencing. You can use them for mock-up designs if you're tattooing, or you can also use them to create custom, unique coloring pages for you to color in. So there's so much value in that pack. It's on sale at the moment. Head over to daggettdesigns.com.au. Last of all, guys, if you're new to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment in the comment section down below, letting me know what you'd like to see next time, and make sure to give this video the old thumbs up. Alright, guys, I'll see you next time. Bye.